Now, with no further ado, I would like to start this conversation. Our chat today will unfold around three different pillars: resilience, defense, and deterrence. And I'd like to start with resilience. We've seen the opening remarks of the Director General of MSB. She was mentioning some great work that Sweden is doing in trying to build in societal resilience. And this lead me to an anecdote, because at the beginning of the year, your remark, Europe must be ready for war, caused quite a reaction. There were young people that took over social media, and they were expressing their fear and confusion, underlying we are not ready for a war scenario. Now, I understand that not all the countries of the alliance are like Sweden, but you are the NATO Youth Summit. You have the chance to address young people from across the alliance. Have you got a special message? And I'd like to ask you, what can we do in our daily life to build societal resilience?
First of all, good morning to all of you. My remarks in January were not to scare people, but to prepare people. And I think that is the message in general. For the young generation that is basically present here at the Youth Summit, I think this generation in many ways is more resilient than they think, because COVID hit this generation in a way that nobody expected at the time. And that basically had a huge impact in the lives of a lot of people, young people as well, people that were trying to study, people that were trying to play, people that were trying to go to festivals, or all the things that people like to do or have to do. And that was seriously interrupted by, in this case, a pandemic. And that's part of my motto, which is expect the unexpected. And so this discussion on war was for many, and maybe for still too many, a discussion that is sort of a faraway thing. It is something that will not happen to us because we live in Sweden, far away from all the troubles in the world, but also in the Netherlands or other parts of the alliance. And there is parts in the alliance that is closer to Russia, or as we just heard, if you live in Ukraine, then you know what war is. It's not a crisis, it's a war. And so therefore, people have to understand that it's not a faraway thing. War is back in Europe. That's why I try to explain that we have to become more resilient as a society, not only the military, because as a society we play a role in being ready. And the readier we are, as they say, you know, if you want peace, prepare for war. And therefore, the things I said, I basically have said for 1.5 years already. But in a way, it was, how do you say, emphasized by a number of things that were said by President Macron, who talked about war economy. It was the German minister who talked about the kriegstüchtig, and it was the Swedish chief of defense who said we have to be ready for war. And so suddenly there was a critical mass, and therefore it went viral. But in many ways, I said what I said for the last 1.5 years. But I honestly think that we all play a role. And the young lady from Ukraine that I just heard gave some great examples if it comes to how we make sure that there is a service after service for the Ukrainian wounded soldiers that now help to build drones and therefore have a new purpose again. It is about making sure that our society understands, as I see in Sweden or in the Scandinavian navies more than in many other navies, is that when I talked about simple things like have water in house for 36 hours, have batteries for your radio and for your flashlight, is not a new thing in the Scandinavian nations, because you know there could be a power outage. And it's not only about war; it's also about a natural disaster or there's a power outage. And we now live almost in a society where we do not accept any failures, where we do not accept any risk. And things can go wrong. It's not something new per se, but we have lived in a sort of perfect society for so long that we hardly accept that there is a disturbance. And so there's a lot of things that people can do. Last week I was in London for a CEO conference, and they asked me for examples. And it was interesting because just before me, the CEO of IKEA had spoken. And he said, when the war started, we found out that we were confronted with the fact that 25% of the wood that we use in IKEA came from Russia. And therefore, basically, overnight, we had to change that because we didn't want to buy our wood in Russia anymore. And that is the way industry has to prepare. It is about energy, it is about raw materials, it is about food. All these things can and have been and will be used as a weapon by Russia. We didn't have a contract with Gazprom for oil and gas. We had a contract with Putin. And when he decided to tell Gazprom to switch off the valve, they did. That was not in the contract. So we have to understand that all the things that we thought, if you have a business contract amongst nations, we will never have war again. It's not true. And we see the same with China, where there's a lot of dependencies on China with regards to the raw materials for medicine, 75% in the hands of China, 95% of the raw materials for renewable energy is in the hands of China. So we all have to understand that this will have an impact in our future. And as your future is probably longer than my future, you will have to deal with this for longer. And therefore, we have to, if you sort of think about these things, dare to think about these things, that is part of resilience as well. If you dare to think the unthinkable, then there's less surprises when it happens. And I think that is, you went through the pandemic already, so in a way you are more resilient than you think. But there is many things that we can do, where we can help our society to become stronger.
Thank you very much, Admiral. I think we have a lot to learn from our friends in Ukraine, and I have to say from what I've heard also from our friends in Sweden of doing so much to raising awareness of such a complex challenge.